Straight off to Sharmila first. Dilip will come to you in just a minute. Sharmila, time for, it's almost a thing that we are waiting for, some kind of a sideways movement, some kind of a correction. The first signs come but the big caps just don't correct.
Absolutely, and I think if you see the kind of data that's been being discussed today in terms of 100 days of government, etc., and the surprise is that actually the sectors which have participated and have gone up, you'd find pharma, I think, being the top, and that's at a time when everyone said that defensives would take a back seat. So whether it's pharma, whether it is IT, whether it is metals, really speaking, all the sectors have done reasonably well in the last 100 days, and precisely, I think every time you think that this is where the market is going to halt, it just seems to take a bit of a breather and sort of continue from there. So there seems to be some kind of evidence, that's slowly building in that there is money on the sidelines that's waiting to get invested, because that's precisely what we see every time we see a dip in the market. I think the disappointing bit has been really the mid caps, not just today, but I would say the last month or so, where we've really seen them take a back seat, and you would expect, really speaking, more buying to come into some of the mid-cap names, given the fact that large caps have run up so much, but that still doesn't seem to be happening.
Prashant, there's some news coming in on Cogencis, which says that the DOT has extended telecom equipment certification deadline to April. That certification deadline was earlier July 2014, so they've moved it to April 2015. And this is the context that Cogencis is giving, is that DOT had made telecom firms network element testing mandatory. I'm assuming that would have been additional cost. I can see Bharti Infratel is up about 3.5% at the moment. So I'm wondering whether this is the context in which this has come, Prashant.
It's certainly higher. On the other thing that we've been discussing, and at 4 p.m. today, we'll put the schedule, the program out in terms of the 4 p.m. Prime Minister Modi is essentially going to launch his financial inclusion agenda at 4 p.m. today from Delhi, and we'll be live and we'll cut across to that. But on it, various numbers have been floated, right? Out there, and I was talking to a top PSU banker earlier, and this gentleman basically pointed to the figures already out. Of course, the numbers could be different, but apparently the government wants, we all know the government as part of the financial inclusion agenda wants bank accounts for all, for everyone, and this PSU bank chief was saying that's about 15 odd crore households. So 15 crore bank accounts is what we are looking at. The government plans, according to what has been reported so far, plans to give about 5,000 rupees as overdraft facility. That's about 75,000 crores. If you open 15 crore accounts and put 5,000 rupees in there, that can be withdrawn, and then give I think 1 lakh rupee insurance or so for each of these accounts. So I think it's going to be, and the question this gentleman I was speaking to was making is what is the cost to PSU banks? Because the general understanding is, and we'll of course get more clarity at 4 p.m. today when Prime Minister Modi actually lays that out. But what's the burden on PSU banks going to be? How aggressively will private sector banks have to participate in this drive to open bank accounts for all the underbanked, the non-banked actually? And where's the money going to come in from? Forget about the insurance, but 75,000 crores is essentially what we're looking at. And who's going to sort of foot the bill? Of course, when I say foot the bill, the point also is credit. Good credit is good business, but if you fear that a lot of the money could actually turn into NPLs, etc., as this PSU bank chief I spoke to did say, then you've got a real problem in the PSU space and the PSU bank space. But as I said, these numbers of 15 crores, 75,000 crores, all based on what has already been reported out there, is what's part of the agenda of the PM's financial inclusion plan. But more details between 4 and 5, the Prime Minister will speak and sort of roll out that entire plan. So it's going to be interesting to see what really comes out of it on it.
Right. Perhaps worth asking Mr. Bhatt a little bit about that. Mr. Bhatt, if one looks at what this financial inclusion plan is and it's going to be rolled out across India by various ministers, would you actually try and get out of PSU banks because of that, or you think that it's a good thing because even if there's default, the government will step in and give them some kind of financial paper to keep their balance sheet strong?
Well, I think you all have really summed up the apprehensions pretty well. I think that apprehension still remains the bottom line. If you are going to advance them 5,000 rupees, which works out to almost 75,000 crores, so that worry will definitely remain. But you know, I was just interacting with one of the bankers some time back, and you know, his take was that if they will give a overdraft of 5,000, and then in most of the cases they keep it, they take it away from him and keep it as an FD. So you know, it is not, it just does not go out of the system. You are given him an overdraft, you are given an FD, at least your money is safe. So something of that sort is what one of the bankers was mentioning that happens, but still there is bound to be some apprehension as to if this thing is not exactly followed, then who is going to really foot the bill at the end of the day? Yes, sure, I think that those worries will remain, and I think like that enough worries will come, especially when you are going to take some social objectives as one of your targets.
Dilip Bhatt, before these elections, what was your expectation from the Modi government in terms of not what it's going to do, but did you expect it to be much more right of center?
Well, I think the optimism is still very much intact. Some of the measures that they have taken a very good significant step, you can say. But you know, the financial community is little always impatient because you had almost 2 to 3 years of a very trying times in terms of whether any policy will come or whether any action is going to happen to inject or to drive the growth. So in that sense, the financial community is always a very impatient community. So we are expecting that things will pan out.
But no, I'm not asking about what you are expecting. My next question would have come to that. But the first thing is, when the capital markets wanted a change in government, not only the capital markets, of course, most of India wanted, at least 23% of India wanted it. What did they expect from Mr. Modi? Because when the exit polls came out, the markets shot up, driven by those exit polls, because there was an expectation. What did they expect? To be much more pro-market, much more pro-business, or to be what you're getting right now?
Well, I think what market really is extrapolating is a decisive mandate would mean, a decisive mandate would have meant sooner or later a policy which will lead the overall growth. This is what market was expecting. Now, growth is a very nebulous word and you can have a lot of connotations to that. What exactly, how are you going to drive the growth, whether in the short run, medium term or long term? So I think markets were expecting that there is going to be some decisive steps to be taken. Maybe they were expecting a little earlier.
All right, one of the things whenever we spoke to people, even on counting day, I think one of the things that we got is that the markets more or less expected an end to populism. It expected that there would be no more of these things that happened under the UPA, like the loan write-off, for instance. They expected subsidies to go down. None of that has happened. And if one has to categorize this particular thing, of course, some would say that this is necessary, this was required. But some would say that even this financial inclusion plan is similar to what the UPA used to do and was accused of as indulging in populism.
So, well, you may be right, but everybody will have their own interpretation. So, my interpretation on this particular scenario is that I don't think that we expected that the subsidies and all that would come down, the populism would come down. Everybody is mainly worried that in the name of populism, in the name of subsidies, there were a lot of leakages and which was leading to a lot of corruption. So I think those are the issues which were really bothering a lot of people from the financial community and I'm sure in India also, that in that name whether there were a lot of leakages. Now we expect that at least the subsidies will flow into the right hands in the right direction, which is what is required. But otherwise, I'm not of, I don't belong to that camp which feels that subsidies will really come down dramatically, or even in the foreseeable future in next 1.5 to 2 years, that's going to happen.
Sharmila, were you part of that camp which expected subsidies to come down dramatically?
Certainly to come down, and I think to that extent we are fortunate that we are in a situation where crude prices are correcting, and we'd already started this whole thing of really aligning with market price. So in that sense, I think that's a situation at least that's playing out favorably for this government, because the way crude prices have come down, and really the expectation is that they'll come down more. In fact, if we had world peace, then they would have been even lower. So
world peace prices would be higher, Sharmila. I mean, there seems to be an opposite reaction.
From whatever I've read, the demand is not there. So if that were the sole this from which the prices were derived, then you would have seen lower prices.
No, so what's your take on this financial inclusion bonanza, this big plan? What do you make of it?
I think these numbers are inflated, first of all. So let's wait and hear and see what kind of numbers the government is talking about. Whether it's anywhere as high as what Prashant was discussing. I hope it's not. And secondly, I mean, I don't know if, I think if you open a bank account, and I don't know if there's any real need to give any overdraft, and what purpose that serves really. So I mean, I am not really too much in favor of this move.
The point is, I mean, without the overdraft, what use is a bank account? I mean, there's also argument that people have done well even without banking accounts, right? I mean, there's a large part of the economy which is not banked, which the government wants to cater to. But unless you give something, you open a bank account. But if you don't put anything there, I mean, the guy was happy before a bank account, he's happy after. I mean, what difference does it make? Unless of course you put something there, which is 5,000 rupees, which is being quoted, the figure which is being quoted.
No, I would look at it as really as something, perhaps which is what Mr. Bhatt was also referring to, that, if any bank has any sort of a thing where you need to keep a minimum balance, and that's why you create this 5,000 rupees, but you keep it as an FD, then I think that is understandable. But you can't give somebody 5,000 rupees to spend really, because that's really being, that's going about it in a very silly manner.
But that is essentially what is being, I mean, I'm not making this up. I've read it in articles.
I would hope not. I would hope not. I mean, I would sincerely hope not that, because I think that,
you would sincerely hope that Prashant is not making it up, or you sincerely hope that they're not going to be giving those 5,000 rupees?
I sincerely hope that he is making it up.
All right, we're going to come back and discuss the stocks and the markets in just a couple of minutes. Just wanted to get this financial inclusion issue up, because that's going to be happening at about 4 o'clock today. We'll be cutting live to that as well. Nifty at 79.56, and we'll be back in 2 minutes.
Hands are made to play. Hands are made to share.
Kohler presents Pure Clean, multi-function bidet seats. Enjoy hands-free hygiene for your everyday routine.
Hands are made for love.
Elegant, magnificent, alluring. Just a few words for Gulshan Belina. 2 and 3 BHK apartments at Greater Noida West. Gulshan Belina, simply beautiful.
For Indians, it's a great opportunity to study in one of the world's finest universities.
सर कह रहे सिर्फ 30 लाख में फॉरेन डिग्री पाने का इससे अच्छा मौका नहीं मिलेगा। तालियां!
बच्चों को बकरा क्यों बनावें?
Sir, jobs. Ha! Placements. Our students work in such companies across UK and US that you have no idea.
डॉलर के सपने क्यों दिखावें?
Thank you.
आइडिया है सर। ट्विटर से आपका यूनिवर्सिटी का डिग्री यूएस और यूके में वैलिड नहीं है।
इंडिया इंटरनेट जब लगावे,
हमें उल्लू मत बनाओ।
इंडिया को नो उल्लू बनावे, सोच कर, समझ कर, इन्वेस्ट कर।
Issued in the interest of investors by NSE.
तुम मेरी दुनिया सजाती हो, कभी नखरे उठाती हो, घर को घर बनाती हो, घर को
हम सिर्फ घर बनाते हैं, आप उसमें खुशियां बसाते हैं। सुपरटेक।
This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV Profit in association with NSC.
Nifty was trading at about 79.56 levels, and between 79.50 and 79.56, because 79.50 is an intraday level to look at. It was the second resistance of the day, and we've been trading above that. 79.56 is the 38.2% 38.2% extension that we looked at from the corrected level of 75.40, where we had hit the previous low. And it's more or less trading within that particular band at the moment. Sharmila, let me get a sense of what you're doing with your money at the moment.
The two stocks that I've really chosen to talk about today, one is Dabur, as you all were discussing earlier, is gone for an MSCI rebalancing, and you have seen some buying in Dabur on the back of that. But really the way I'm looking at the stock is far more long term. I'm looking at it with a year or a couple of years perspective. I think the kind of portfolio that they have in the kind of products that they have, to my mind, make it very attractive going ahead, because the kind of the range that they are in. They are in a lot of products which you see good growth for going ahead, as well as margins there are fairly decent. Plus they have an ongoing strategy to increase their rural spread. So I think both things are going to work for Dabur in the longer term, and I would expect to see a good appreciation on the stock from current levels.
And you have one more counter, right?
Yeah, that's a little more, what should I say, like a high beta play. I'm deliberately going with a name like that. We've seen a lot of correction in GMR from that 36-38 level. I think the key thing to really watch here is that, if they do too much of a dilution, then I think, you would need to be a little cautious. But otherwise, I think the way they are poised, and the way I expect really infra play to play out in the longer term. Again, I think give it a slightly longer term sort of holding period, and try and buy the stock on dips, and I think you will see levels of 36, 38 once again on the stock.
But the consensus there in terms of its earnings till 2017 losses, right? The first positive earnings coming in 2 years from now.
Yes, I think we'll wait and see on that, because I think that a lot will also depend on what happens with power as a sector, really speaking, in this coming year, because a lot of these companies are really stuck because of the kind of the stages of completion that their power projects are in. So I think if you see any real activity on that front, then maybe it could be sooner. But I think, once market gets a sense that this is a company that's coming to sort of grips with the kind of leverage position that it's in, and, things are coming online, market will start rewarding it.
Again, if I look at leverage, Sharmila, then somewhere around 38,000 crores is the net debt that one's estimating could go up to 40,000 crores by FY17. Why would you pick up a company like that? Are you just betting on the fact that it's corrected too much and there's bound to be some sort of a bounce?
Yes and no. I mean, yes, definitely it's corrected, but actually it's really it's almost doubled, I think, from the lowest level that the stock was in. So not strictly because of that, but I think even the kind of debt that you're talking of, actually, if you talk about the debt that is the kind of cash that they have on hand, and the way the company has structured itself with how to handle their debt going ahead, I think they have a pretty much clear sort of a game plan going ahead. And I think that we have seen markets reward companies which have sort of taken cognizance of the fact that this is the debt on hand and this is how we are going to address this issue going ahead. And let's hope for that they get a little lucky and we have slightly improved economic conditions. Then you could see a lot of those things happening faster. But I think that the throw has been made, and from here things should improve for them.
Mr. Bhatt, I want to get a sense from you about what you think about Reliance Industries. It's a company which has just seen a few buy calls out there. It just didn't do enough because of that overhang of gas pricing, the fines increasing. There's a sense that there's not much happening for Mukesh Ambani vis-a-vis the Modi government itself. But a lot of buy calls recently.
Sure, I think a lot of that which you mentioned has really played out in terms of the apprehension and in terms of the price movement. I think very broadly, I think we see that a resolution for some of these issues, especially the gas pricing, because I think everybody realizes that at such a low output, India loses, everybody stands to lose. So I'm sure there will be some resolution which will be to the satisfaction of everyone, which is what I am factoring. And second, of course, I'm also thinking that the 4G, as and when that is going to be launched, that also, it's a uncharted territory for sure at the moment, but still I think there is a good amount of optimism out over there, because with the kind of broadband policy which Mr. Modi has been talking about, I think rolling out to every village, the way Reliance 4G is rolling out some of the things, it probably fits in the plan. So I think there is a lot of value still out over there, and the kind of cash that the company is generating, especially the pre-capex, that also is very significant. So putting all these three things together, I think there's still 25 to 30% depreciation that's very much possible over the next 6 to 7 months.
25-30% appreciation on Reliance Industries, you're saying. Is that correct?
Yes, please.
You have a few mid-cap calls as well. I can see that you're bullish on Motherson Sumi. Could you give us an idea why you're looking at that?
I think that company has demonstrated very adequately that in spite of the fact that they have done acquisitions, in spite of the fact that they're growing, the growth rate has been extremely good. So that means it shows that the management bandwidth is able to manage the acquisitions well, and they're showing growth. Second is their ROEs continue to be upwards of 30%. So that is a very, very healthy sign. And I think more important is company continues to generate a fair amount of free cash, which is what they have shown. And as they scale to the next level, I think these growth rates are not going to falter, is what our expectation is. And I think this is a company which will still continue to show a reasonably very good top line growth, and above the top line, the bottom line growth. So despite it being expensive, I think as they scale new growths, I think the valuations would look far more attractive. So I think this is a company which we feel has still a reasonably good steam left ahead in terms of appreciation.
And you think that the 19-20, I think it's currently trading at about 19 odd times, 18.5, 19 times FY16 earnings. You think that that is a fair valuation? I mean, given that one is expecting a CAGR growth of about what, 34-35%, 19 times is fine?
Absolutely, and I think more than the CAGR growth of 34-35%, what we are still very closely tracking, and which is where the company is really acquitting itself very well, are the ROEs and the free cash. I think both seem to be doing pretty well, and they are still upwards of around 30%. So, you know, on a high growth, to have this kind of ROEs is something, it's a very difficult combination to find. And that is what makes us a lot more comfortable.
Anand, actually, I think Pankaj just walked into the studio and he told me, well, this is one of the most boring expiries that we have seen. And Shamila just told him that it's like the Delhi rain. So, I would like to. But I wanted to just talk about.
Obviously, you think that something which is pleasant is boring. What can I say?
It's always pleasant here, Anand. You should come visit Bombay more often, you know, and not run back. Come in the morning and run away by, afternoon better or evening late. I mean, so you should stay a couple of days next time. Anyway, autos, Anand, right?
Yeah.
So you got sales numbers for the month of August, and we'll put out the numbers. The numbers will come up on your screen. But what was interesting, what I just noticed is, so last 3 months, right? May, June, July, sales numbers have been very good. Okay, I'll just get to this in a bit, but take a look at they've been actually substantially better than the months before that. So 3 months now, year on year, monthly momentum has come through. So May, June and July. The first of every month you get the last month's auto sales numbers, and I'm just looking at the change on BSE auto on the first of the last 3 months. In 2nd of June, when you got the May numbers, the auto index was up 2%. 1st of July, when you got the June numbers, the auto index went up 3.5%. So market reacted very well to the numbers. And the latest, of course, is the 1st of August. When you got the July numbers, you basically had a 2.25% move on the auto index. So these are and I'm not talking about the stocks. Stocks would have done more, individual names, but substantial daily changes. From the 1st of July, the auto index is up about 14% or so, and I think it would be beating the Nifty by quite a bit. Let's just put the numbers, expectations for August on air. And, the street expects Hero MotoCorp to outperform, Bajaj to report decent set of numbers, two-wheelers largely, and Maruti to do about 97,000 units or so. Shamila, what's your view? Do you think momentum will sustain?
If we get these kind of numbers, then it looks like it is sustaining, because as you said, last 3 numbers have given you that indication. So, and especially in two-wheelers, I think it's very heartening, because that's a very competitive market, and it really depends on who's introduced, which model, etc. So there, obviously, I think I've recommended TVS Motors earlier, but among the large caps, I also like Bajaj Auto. I mean, if you hear the kind of strategy that they are going ahead, they seem so focused, so aggressive with their strategy. So definitely, just from the kind of body language that you're getting, it definitely seems that they're in a good patch. So, which is also, of course, being borne out by the kind of numbers that they're doing. But it definitely seems to be the case that momentum seems to be back in autos, and in fact, it's that way, in a sense, the only green shoot that you have really at this moment, where you're actually seeing an improvement in sales on the ground.
Yeah, and actually, it's done very well last 3 months or so. Thanks very much, Shamila, for dropping by. Great having you with us here, as always. Have a good weekend. Dilip, thank you for coming on. Have a good weekend, and we'll see both of you back soon. Thank you. Let's take a quick break. Back in 27 odd minutes left for market close.
All right.
On an end.
26 odd minutes left, Prashant, for markets to shut, and Sanjeev will be joining us in just a couple of minutes.
बारिश बहुत हो रही है, जाना